The gunshot shattered the crystal silence of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. Lena Hayes hit the floor as glass exploded overhead, her hands trembling not from fear, but from recognition. She'd spent 2 years running from violence, building a life where nobody looked twice at the quiet waitress who kept her scars hidden beneath long sleeves. But the man standing between her and the barrel of that gun wasn't her abuser. He was Dominic Moretti, the dangerously calm businessman who'd been watching her for months. And in that moment, as he faced down armed men without flinching, Lena realized her carefully constructed invisibility had just collapsed. If you want to see how a woman who survived hell learned to fight back, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain came down in sheets against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Belladonna, Manhattan's premier Italian restaurant where a single reservation could take months, and the wine list started at $300 a bottle. Lena Hayes moved through the dining room like a ghost, silent, efficient, invisible, exactly how she preferred it. "Table 7 needs water," Marcus, the head waiter, murmured as she passed. "And your regular is back. Section 3. Lena's hands tightened imperceptibly on the tray she carried. "Your regular." As if she'd asked for the attention, as if she wanted any man's eyes following her movements through the restaurant. But Dominic Moretti wasn't like other men. She'd noticed that the first night he'd requested her section 6 months ago. He didn't leer, didn't let his gaze linger on her body or manufacture excuses to touch her hand when she set down his drink. He simply observed, with an intensity that should have frightened her but somehow didn't. Lena delivered the water to table 7, a couple celebrating an anniversary, their fingers intertwined across the white tablecloth, before turning toward section 3. Dominic sat in his usual corner booth, positioned with his back to the wall and a clear view of every entrance. His dark suit was immaculate, his tie slightly loosened. A laptop sat open before him, though his attention lifted the moment she approached. "Good evening, Mr. Moretti." Her voice came out steady, professional. 2 years of practice hiding every emotion behind a mask of pleasant neutrality. "Lena." He acknowledged her with a slight nod, closing the laptop. "How are you tonight?" The question always caught her off guard. He asked it every time, and he actually seemed to wait for an answer that mattered. "I'm well, thank you. Can I start you with your usual? The Barolo?" "Please." His dark eyes studied her face, and she fought the urge to turn away. "And the osso buco when you have a moment." "Of course." As she moved toward the bar, Lena caught her reflection in one of the restaurant's ornate mirrors. 28 years old, blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, minimal makeup highlighting features she'd once been told were too plain, too ordinary. The black uniform, white shirt, black vest, pressed slacks, made her look like every other server in the restaurant. Perfect camouflage. "Girl, your mysterious millionaire is back," Sienna whispered as Lena placed the wine order. The bartender grinned, her dark eyes sparkling with mischief. 6 months of weekly visits. That's devotion. "He likes the food," Lena said quietly. "He likes you. Trust me. I know the difference." Sienna poured the Barolo with practiced ease. "When are you going to let him take you to dinner somewhere you're not working?" "Never." The word came out sharper than intended. Lena softened her tone. "I'm not interested in dating. Honey, that man isn't looking for a date. He's looking for... Table 12 needs their check." Lena took the wine and walked away before Sienna could finish. The truth was, she didn't know what Dominic Moretti wanted. In 6 months, he'd never crossed a line, never asked her out, never made her uncomfortable. He simply appeared every Thursday evening, requested her section, ordered dinner, and left a generous tip that wasn't quite extravagant enough to feel insulting. And he watched her with eyes that saw too much. Lena delivered the wine, took orders from 2 other tables, and had just entered Dominic's ossobuco request into the kitchen system when the restaurant's front door crashed open. The sound cut through the refined atmosphere like a gunshot. Conversation died. Crystal stemware froze halfway to lips. Kyle Mercer stood in the entrance, rain-soaked and furious. Lena's blood turned to ice. "No, not here. Not now." "Lena!" Kyle's voice boomed across the restaurant. "There you are, baby. We need to talk." Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she'd learned the hard way that running only made Kyle angrier. So she straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and walked toward him with deliberate calm. "Kyle, you need to leave." She kept her voice low, aware of 50 pairs of eyes watching. "This is my workplace." Her workplace? He laughed, the sound ugly and sharp. You think you can just disappear? Change your number? Pretend we never happened? We're done. We've been done for 2 years. Lena's hands trembled, but she forced them still. You need to go before I call the police. The police? Kyle's face twisted with rage. He stepped closer, and Lena caught the familiar scent of whiskey on his breath. You'd call the cops on me? After everything I did for you? I gave you a place to live, bought you clothes, paid for your... You gave me nothing I didn't pay for in bruises. The words escaped before she could stop them. Kyle's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. You ungrateful! Let her go! The voice came from behind Lena, quiet, controlled, absolutely unyielding. She turned to find Dominic Moretti standing 3 feet away, his expression perfectly calm. But something in his stillness radiated danger like heat from a furnace. Kyle's grip tightened. Who the hell are you? Someone telling you to leave. Dominic's gaze never wavered. Now. This is between me and my girlfriend. She's not your girlfriend. Dominic took a single step forward. She's told you to leave. The restaurant has asked you to leave. You have 5 seconds to make the intelligent choice. Around them, Lena registered movement. 2 men in dark suits had materialized near the entrance. Marcus had a phone to his ear, undoubtedly calling the police, but all she could focus on was the pressure of Kyle's fingers digging into her wrist and the terrible familiarity of his rage. You think you can threaten me? Kyle snarled at Dominic. You have any idea who I am? Kyle Mercer, junior analyst at Hartman Financial. Suspended 3 months ago for falsifying trading records, currently under investigation by the SEC. Dominic recited the information without emotion. You're living in your mother's basement in Queens and driving a leased BMW you can't afford. You have 2 prior domestic violence arrests that were dropped when your victims refused to testify. The color drained from Kyle's face. How do you... The real question, Dominic continued, his voice dropping to something colder, is whether you understand who I am, and why making me repeat myself would be the worst decision of your substantially disappointing life. For a long moment, Kyle stood frozen. Then his grip on Lena's wrist released. He stumbled backward, his bravado crumbling under the weight of Dominic's stare. This isn't over, he muttered. Yes, Dominic said quietly. It is. Kyle fled into the rain. The restaurant erupted into whispers. Lena stood motionless, her wrist throbbing where Kyle's fingers had been. She should feel relieved, grateful. But all she felt was the sick certainty that this wouldn't end here. It never ended. Lena. Dominic's hand appeared in her peripheral vision, extended, not touching, an offer, not a command. Let me see. She allowed him to examine her wrist where red marks were already blooming into bruises. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm fine, she whispered. You're not. He released her gently. But you will be. I'll make certain of it. The promise in those words should have frightened her. Instead, for the first time in 2 years, Lena felt something dangerous unfurl in her chest. Hope, bam. You didn't have to do that. Lena sat in Belladonna's back office an hour later, an ice pack pressed to her wrist. The police had taken her statement, documented the bruising, and left with promises to file a restraining order that she knew from experience meant nothing. Dominic stood near the door, his presence somehow making the small office feel even smaller. Yes, I did. Why? The question burst out before she could stop it. You don't know me. We've never even had a real conversation. Why would you? I know you work doubles 4 nights a week. You take the subway home to a studio apartment in Washington Heights, and you walk the last 3 blocks with your keys between your fingers. His voice remained gentle despite the words. I know you flinch when men raise their voices. That you never order for yourself in restaurants, even on your breaks. That you haven't been to a doctor in over a year because you're working without health insurance. Lena stared at him, ice spreading through her veins. You've been watching me. Yes, the admission should have terrified her, but there was no pride in his voice, no possessiveness, just simple truth. Why? She asked again. Dominic was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight she hadn't heard before. 5 years ago, my sister was murdered by her boyfriend. She'd tried to leave him multiple times, filed restraining orders, called the police, did everything she was supposed to do. His jaw tightened. It didn't matter. He found her anyway. I'm sorry, Lena whispered. Don't be sorry. Be smart. He pulled a business card from his wallet and set it on the desk. Kyle Mercer won't stop. Men like him never do. Tonight wasn't about getting you back, it was about making sure you know he still can. The truth of those words settled like stones in her stomach. So what do I do? You let me help you. Dominic met her eyes. I have resources, security, legal connections that can actually enforce a restraining order, a safe apartment where he can't find you. I can't afford. I'm not asking you to pay me. He said it simply, without condescension. I'm asking you to let me do what I couldn't do for my sister, please. Lena studied him in the fluorescent office light. Dominic Moretti was handsome in a dangerous way. Sharp features, dark hair touched with gray at the temples, a scar barely visible along his jawline. But it wasn't his appearance that made her pulse quicken. It was the intelligence in his eyes, the controlled power in his stillness, and the absolute certainty that he meant every word he said. What do you want in return? She asked quietly. Nobody helps for free. I want you safe. Dominic's expression didn't waver. That's all. Why should I believe you? Because if I wanted to hurt you, I've had 6 months of opportunities. He gestured to the card. Think about it. But don't take too long. Kyle knows where you work now. He knows you're vulnerable. I'm not. You are. The words weren't cruel, just honest. Right now you are. But you don't have to stay that way. He left before she could respond. Lena sat alone in the office, the business card burning against her palm. Every instinct she'd developed screamed warnings. Don't trust him. Don't accept help that comes with invisible strings. Don't let any man get close enough to hurt you again. But another voice, quieter, fiercer, whispered different words. Don't let fear make you weak. Don't let Kyle win by making you too afraid to accept help. Don't spend the rest of your life running. She slipped the card into her pocket and went back to work. The next 3 days passed in tense normalcy. Lena worked her shifts, jumped at shadows, and avoided checking her phone. The restraining order came through with remarkable speed, Dominic's doing, she suspected, but the paper felt like tissue against the weight of her anxiety. Kyle didn't appear at the restaurant again, but she felt his presence like a storm on the horizon. On the 4th night, Lena returned to her apartment at 1 a.m. to find her front door ajar, every muscle in her body locked. She should run, call the police, do anything except step inside. But this was her home, the first place she'd been able to afford on her own, the first space that belonged only to her. She couldn't let Kyle take that too. Lena pushed the door open. The apartment had been destroyed, furniture overturned, clothes ripped from the closet, dishes shattered across the kitchen floor. Spray paint covered the walls in vicious red letters. Whore, mine, you can't hide. She stood frozen in the doorway, trembling not with fear, but with rage so pure it burned away every other emotion. 2 years of running, 2 years of rebuilding, 2 years of telling herself she was safe, all of it shattered in an instant. Lena pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed the number on Dominic's business card. He answered on the first ring. Lena, he broke into my apartment. Her voice came out steady, cold. Everything's destroyed. Are you inside? Yes. Get out. Now. Walk to the bodega on the corner and wait inside where there are witnesses. His voice remained calm, but she heard movement in the background, car doors, engines. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't touch anything. Dominic, I know. Something in his tone made her breath catch. I know you're angry. I know you want to fight, but right now you need to be smart. Get somewhere safe. Let me handle this. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to scream that she was tired of being the victim, tired of running, tired of letting men dictate her life. But she also wasn't stupid. She went to the bodega. Dominic arrived in 7 minutes, not 10. He emerged from a black SUV with 2 other men, all of them moving with military precision. One stayed with her while Dominic and the other entered her building. You're safe now, the guard said quietly. He was younger than Dominic, broad-shouldered, with sharp eyes that never stopped scanning the street. Boss won't let anything happen to you. Who is he? Lena asked. Really? The guard smiled slightly. Someone who keeps his promises. 30 minutes later, Dominic returned. His expression remained neutral, but tension radiated from his shoulders. The police are documenting everything, but we already know it was Kyle. He left his phone behind, likely on purpose, to send a message. What message? That restraining orders don't stop him. Dominic studied her face. You can't go back there, Lena. Not until this is resolved. I don't have anywhere else. Yes, you do. He pulled out a different business card with an address written on it. A secured apartment building in Tribeca. Doorman, cameras, biometric access. Your name is already on the lease. Lena stared at the card. You can't just... I can. I did. Dominic's voice gentled. This isn't charity, and it's not a cage. You can leave whenever you want, but while you're deciding what comes next, you need to be somewhere he can't reach you. Why are you doing this? I told you why. Your sister, Lena whispered. What was her name? Isabella. The name came out rough, weighted with grief that time hadn't diminished. She was 26, brilliant, kind, too trusting. I'm sorry she didn't have someone like you protecting her. So am I. Dominic met her eyes. But you do, if you'll let me. Lena thought about her destroyed apartment, about 2 years of running that had bought her nothing but temporary peace, about the fear that had governed every decision since the night she'd finally escaped Kyle's fists, about the man standing before her, offering protection without demanding payment. She was probably making a terrible mistake, but staying in the wreckage of her old life would be worse. Okay, she said quietly, but I pay rent. Whatever the going rate is, half the going rate, you're still working double shifts. 3/4. Dominic's mouth curved in the faintest smile. Deal. Whoa. The apartment in Tribeca was beautiful in a way that made Lena's chest ache. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a kitchen with marble countertops and appliances she barely knew how to use. It was 3 times the size of her destroyed studio and probably cost 10 times as much. This is too much, she breathed, standing in the living room at 3 a.m. It's secure. Dominic gestured to the reinforced door, the camera system, the panic button discreetly installed near the entrance. That's all that matters. No one lives like this on a waitress salary. You're not just a waitress. He said it with complete conviction. You're a survivor who's been forced to live small because someone tried to break you. This is what your life looks like when you're not running. The words hit harder than she expected. Lena turned away, blinking against sudden tears. I don't know how to accept this. Then don't accept it. Just use it. Sleep without fear tonight. Wake up tomorrow and decide what comes next. Dominic moved toward the door. My number's programmed into the phone on the counter. Security is downstairs 24/7. You're safe here. Dominic, she spoke before he could leave. Thank you. He paused, his hand on the doorknob. Don't thank me yet. Kyle won't stop just because you're harder to reach. This is just the beginning. After he left, Lena stood alone in the beautiful apartment and acknowledged the truth she'd been avoiding. Dominic Moretti was right. Kyle wouldn't stop. The restraining order, the police reports, even the destroyed apartment, none of it would be enough to make him let go. Men like Kyle never believed they could lose. But as Lena locked the reinforced door and tested the panic button, she felt something shift inside her chest. Not hope exactly. Something fiercer. Determination. She'd spent 2 years surviving. Maybe it was time to learn how to fight back. And maybe, just maybe, she'd found someone willing to teach her how. But the next morning, Lena woke to sunlight streaming through windows that didn't face a brick wall. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. Kyle, the destroyed apartment, Dominic's quiet protection. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It's Sienna. Dominic gave me your new number. You okay? Lena smiled despite everything. Getting there. See you tonight? Marcus gave you the week off. Paid. Also Dominic's doing, I'm guessing. Tell Marcus I'll be there tomorrow. Girl, take the time. Your mysterious millionaire has it covered. Lena set the phone down, irritation and gratitude warring in her chest. She didn't want to be a charity case. Didn't want to owe anyone anything. But she also couldn't deny the relief of waking up without fear clenching her stomach. Her real phone, the one Kyle had the number for, sat in her bag, powered off. She pulled it out, hesitated, then turned it on. 17 missed calls, 43 texts. Lena didn't read them. She already knew what they'd say. Apologies mixed with threats. Promises to change tangled with accusations. The same cycle that had trapped her for 3 years before she'd finally escaped. Instead, she forwarded everything to the police as the lawyer Dominic had connected her with had instructed. Evidence for the harassment case they were building. Then she opened her email and found a message from an address she didn't recognize. Ms. Hayes, Mr. Moretti has asked me to reach out regarding your ongoing situation with Kyle Mercer. I'm Jennifer Chen. a criminal attorney specializing in domestic violence cases. Based on the evidence collected, including last night's break-in, documented harassment, and Mr. Mercer's violation of the restraining order, we have strong grounds for criminal charges. However, I need you to understand that pressing charges will likely escalate his behavior in the short term. I'm available to discuss your options whenever you're ready. Mr. Moretti has retained my services on your behalf. Best regards, Jennifer Chen, Esquire. Lena read the email 3 times, her heart pounding. Pressing charges meant going on the offensive. It meant stopping running and standing her ground. It meant risking Kyle's rage. But what was the alternative? Spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder? Let fear govern every decision? She'd already lost 2 years to that fear. She wasn't giving Kyle anymore. Lena typed a response. Ms. Chen, I'm ready to discuss my options. When can we meet? The reply came within minutes. How's 2 p.m. today at my office? Address below. Mr. Moretti will be present if you're comfortable with that. I'm comfortable, Lena wrote back. See you then. Jennifer Chen's office occupied the 20th floor of a building in Midtown, all glass and steel and quiet efficiency. The attorney herself was in her 40s, sharply dressed, with eyes that missed nothing. Ms. Hayes, she shook Lena's hand firmly. Thank you for coming. Dominic stood near the windows, somehow making the expensive suit look understated. He nodded to Lena, but didn't approach, giving her space to make her own decisions. Jennifer gestured to the conference table. Let's talk about your options. For the next hour, she laid out the case with clinical precision. The evidence was substantial. Texts, voicemails, the break-in, witness statements from the restaurant. Kyle had violated the restraining order multiple times and could face jail time. But, Jennifer said carefully, you need to understand what pressing charges means. Kyle Mercer is already unstable. Facing criminal prosecution will likely increase his desperation. You're saying he'll come after me harder. I'm saying it's a possibility we need to prepare for. Jennifer glanced at Dominic. Which is why enhanced security is critical during this period. I can handle security, Dominic said quietly. Lena looked between them. What kind of security are we talking about? Professional protection, trained personnel who can intervene if Kyle attempts contact. Jennifer pulled out a document. Mr. Moretti has offered to cover these costs until the legal proceedings conclude. That could take months. Yes. Lena turned to Dominic. Why would you do that? Because it's necessary. His expression remained neutral. And because I can. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. Something flickered in his eyes, an emotion she couldn't quite name. You don't owe me explanations for accepting help, Lena, but I owe you honesty. I'm not doing this purely out of altruism. Helping you helps me sleep better at night. Selfish motivation, perhaps, but it doesn't change the fact that you need protection and I can provide it. The raw truth in his words disarmed her. And if I say no, then I respect that decision and Jennifer finds you other resources. Dominic's voice gentled. You're not trapped. You're not obligated. You're making informed choices about your own safety. Lena studied him, this dangerous, controlled man who'd inserted himself into her life without permission, but somehow without violation. She didn't fully trust him yet. Wasn't sure she could trust anyone after Kyle, but she trusted his competence, his resources, his ability to keep her safe while she learned to protect herself. Okay, she said. I'll press charges. But I need to understand everything. The security, the legal process, all of it. No more surprises. Jennifer smiled. Agreed. Let's go through this step by step. Tut. 3 weeks later, Lena stood in Belladonna's kitchen during her break, reading the news on her phone. Junior analyst arrested in harassment case read the headline, with Kyle's booking photo beneath it. The criminal charges had stuck. Kyle was out on bail, but the evidence was overwhelming. Jennifer predicted jail time, restraining orders that would actually be enforced, and civil damages that would bankrupt whatever resources he had left. Justice in neat legal packages. But Lena didn't feel victorious. She felt exhausted. You okay? Sienna appeared beside her, concern etched across her face. Yeah, just... Lena gestured helplessly at the phone, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe there isn't one. Maybe he's finally done. Men like Kyle are never done. The words came out more bitter than she intended. Then it's good you have Dominic. Sienna bumped her shoulder gently. Speaking of which, your mysterious benefactor is here. Hasn't missed a Thursday yet. Lena's pulse quickened despite herself. Over the past 3 weeks, Dominic had maintained his routine: dinner every Thursday, polite conversation, generous tips. But something had shifted between them. The pretense of stranger and customer had burned away, leaving something more complicated in its place. She found him in his usual booth, laptop closed, attention already focused on her approach. Evening, Dominic? She'd stopped calling him Mr. Moretti 2 weeks ago. Lena. His eyes searched her face. I saw the news. Yeah. She set down his wine without being asked. Your attorney is very good. She is. How are you handling it? The question, simple, sincere, nearly broke through her composure. I don't know. I should feel relieved, right? But I just feel... Waiting, Dominic finished quietly. For the next attack. Yes. That will pass. Eventually. He paused. My sister used to say the hardest part wasn't escaping. It was learning to believe she deserved to be free. Lena sat down across from him without asking permission. Did she? Believe it? I don't know. She died before she had the chance to find out. Pain flickered across his features before control reasserted itself. But you will. I'll make certain of it. Why? The question she kept asking, hoping for a different answer. This time Dominic held her gaze without deflecting. Because watching you survive reminds me that not every story has to end the way Isabella's did. Because you're stronger than you know and braver than you believe. And because... He stopped, something shifting in his expression. Because you matter. To me. For reasons I'm still trying to understand myself. The admission hung between them, honest and unadorned. Lena's breath caught. Dominic! The restaurant's front window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the dining room as gunfire erupted from the street. Lena hit the floor on instinct, Dominic's body covering hers before she could process what was happening. Around them, screams filled the air, more gunshots, splintering wood, the metallic scent of spent ammunition. Then silence, broken only by car alarms and distant sirens. Dominic lifted himself carefully, checking her for injuries. Are you hurt? No, what? Stay down. His voice had gone cold, controlled, absolutely lethal. He pulled out his phone, speaking in rapid, clipped sentences to someone on the other end. Lena's mind raced. This wasn't Kyle. Kyle was reckless, but not suicidal. This was something else entirely. This was Dominic's world crashing into hers. Security personnel materialized, not restaurant staff, but the men in dark suits who'd been subtly present since the night Kyle had appeared. They moved with military precision, securing the perimeter, checking for casualties. Boss, one of them said to Dominic, street's clear. Looks like a warning shot. No casualties. Cameras? Already pulling footage. Dominic's jaw tightened. He helped Lena to her feet, his hands gentle despite the violence still crackling in the air. I need to get you somewhere safe. What about everyone else? Lena gestured to the terrified diners, the traumatized staff. My people will handle them. Right now, you're my priority. Why? The word burst out, sharper than she intended. What was that? Who's shooting at you? Dominic met her eyes, and in that moment, the careful distance he'd maintained shattered completely. Business rivals. People who think hurting those close to me will make me weak. People who are about to learn they made a catastrophic miscalculation. The darkness in his voice should have terrified her. Instead, it crystallized everything she'd been trying to ignore for 6 months. Dominic Moretti wasn't just a wealthy businessman with resources and connections. He was something far more dangerous, and she'd just become his greatest vulnerability. The safe house wasn't what Lena expected. Instead of some sterile bunker, Dominic brought her to a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. Elegant, understated, with security measures so sophisticated they were nearly invisible. How many of these do you have? Lena asked as they entered through a reinforced door that looked like ordinary wood. Enough. Dominic moved through the space with familiar ease, checking rooms, verifying systems. This one's completely off the books. No paper trail connecting it to me or my businesses. Your businesses? Lena watched him work, noting the practiced efficiency of his movements. What exactly do you do, Dominic? He paused, his back to her. Import-export. Logistics. Property management. That's what you tell people at cocktail parties. Yes. What's the truth? Dominic turned to face her, and for the first time since the shooting, something like uncertainty crossed his features. The truth is complicated. Try me. Lena crossed her arms. Someone just shot up a restaurant while I was inside. I think I've earned complicated. He studied her for a long moment, as if weighing how much honesty she could handle. Then he gestured to the leather sofa. Sit. This will take a while. Lena sat, her heart pounding. Part of her wanted to run, to escape whatever darkness was about to be revealed. But she'd spent 2 years running from Kyle's violence. She wouldn't run from Dominic's truth. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter and handed her one before settling into the chair across from her. My family has been in New York for 4 generations. My great-grandfather came from Sicily and built a legitimate shipping business. But he also built something less legitimate. Connections, influence, protection for the Italian community when the police wouldn't provide it. You're talking about the Mafia. I'm talking about history. Dominic sipped his whiskey. By the time my father inherited the business, it was split between legitimate enterprises and what we call traditional operations. He tried to separate the two, failed. The connections run too deep. And you? I've been working to transition everything legitimate for the past 5 years, divesting from illegal operations, partnering with federal authorities to dismantle the worst elements, building businesses that don't require violence to sustain them. His jaw tightened. But that transition has made enemies. People who profit from the old ways, people who see my cooperation with law enforcement as betrayal. The people who shot at us tonight. Yes. Dominic met her eyes. A faction led by Vincent Russo. He controls drug trafficking, illegal gambling, protection rackets, everything I've been systematically dismantling. Tonight was a message that he can reach me anywhere, hurt anyone close to me. The implications crashed over Lena like cold water. He was targeting me. He was targeting my weakness. Dominic's voice went cold. He miscalculated. How is nearly killing me a miscalculation? Because he assumed it would make me cautious, defensive. Something dangerous flickered in Dominic's eyes. Instead, he just gave me justification to end him completely. The matter-of-fact way he said it sent chills down Lena's spine. What does that mean? It means Vincent Russo just signed his own death warrant. Dominic set down his glass with careful precision. I've been playing by federal rules, dismantling his operation through legal channels. That ends tonight. He brought violence into a public space, threatened innocent people, put you in danger. The gloves come off. Dominic, I need you to understand something. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. I can protect you. I have the resources, the personnel, the connections. But staying close to me means living in this world. There will always be another Vincent Russo, another threat, another person who thinks they can get to me through those I care about. So what are you saying? That I should leave? I'm saying you have a choice. His voice gentled. I can arrange complete relocation. New identity, clean background, financial support until you're established somewhere far from New York. You'd be safe, free, away from Kyle, away from me, away from all of this. Lena's chest tightened. You want me to disappear? I want you alive. The raw honesty in his words nearly broke her. I want you to have the life Isabella never got to live, even if that means I never see you again. For a moment, Lena couldn't speak. Here was this powerful, dangerous man offering her exactly what she'd been running toward for 2 years. Complete escape, total safety, a fresh start with no strings attached. She should take it. Should grab the lifeline and run as far and fast as possible. Instead, she asked, what if I don't want to run anymore? Dominic went very still. Lena, I've spent 2 years being invisible, making myself small, hiding, surviving. She set down her whiskey with hands that didn't shake. Kyle broke into my apartment 3 weeks ago, and instead of running again, I pressed charges. Tonight someone shot at us, and I'm still sitting here asking questions instead of fleeing. That's not the same as choosing this life. Isn't it? Lena leaned forward. You said Vincent was sending a message. What message am I sending if I run the moment things get dangerous? A smart one. A weak one. The words came out fiercer than she intended. I'm tired of being weak, Dominic. Tired of letting fear make my decisions. If staying means fighting, then maybe it's time I learned how. Dominic's expression shifted, surprise mixed with something that looked dangerously like pride. You have no idea what you're saying. Then explain it to me. Stop protecting me from information and tell me the truth. Lena held his gaze. What happens next? He was silent for a long moment, clearly weighing his words. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Marcus, bring everyone to the Brooklyn location. Full briefing in 30 minutes. When he hung up, Lena raised an eyebrow. Everyone? My security team, my legal counsel, the federal contact who's been helping with the transition. Dominic stood, rolling up his sleeves. If you're staying, you need to understand exactly what that means. No more half-truths or careful omissions. You get the full picture. And then? Then you decide if you still want to be here when the sun comes up. 28 minutes later, the Brownstones' living room filled with people. Marcus, Dominic's head of security, a former Marine with scars and sharp eyes. Jennifer Chen, the attorney. 2 other security personnel whose names Lena didn't catch. And a woman in a tailored suit who introduced herself as Special Agent Sarah Kim from the FBI. Lena blinked. The FBI? Organized Crime Task Force. Agent Kim settled into a chair with practiced ease. I've been working with Mr. Moretti for 3 years on dismantling the Russo family's operations. The FBI is okay with him being what he is? What he was, Agent Kim corrected. Dominic has provided invaluable intelligence and cooperation in exchange for immunity on past activities. His transition to legitimate business has been documented and verified. Legally, he's clean. Morally? Lena asked. Dominic's mouth curved slightly. Still a work in progress. Agent Kim pulled out a tablet, bringing up surveillance footage. Tonight's shooting was executed by 3 men in a stolen vehicle. We've identified them as Russo's enforcement crew. The shots were deliberately high, meant to intimidate, not kill. An intimidation that could have killed innocent people, Jennifer added coldly. Agreed, which is why this crosses a line. Agent Kim looked at Dominic. We've been building a RICO case against Vincent Russo for 18 months. We're close, maybe 2 months from having enough to bring charges. But if you go after him directly, I'm not going to war, Dominic interrupted. I'm going to finish what we started, faster. How? Vincent has 3 primary revenue streams: drug distribution, illegal gambling, and construction kickbacks. We've already crippled the gambling operations. Jennifer, where are we on the construction angle? Jennifer consulted her notes. City investigation is moving slowly. They need concrete evidence of bid rigging and union intimidation. Then we'll provide it. Dominic turned to Marcus. The warehouse in Red Hook. Vincent stores construction materials there off book. How fast can we get surveillance equipment inside? 48 hours if we're careful. 24 if we're not. Be careful. Dominic's voice hardened. But be fast. Agent Kim, can your team use what we find? If it's obtained legally and properly documented, yes. It will be. Dominic pulled up building schematics on his own tablet. Vincent made a mistake tonight. He showed his hand, revealed he's desperate enough to risk public violence. That desperation will make him sloppy. Lena watched the tactical discussion unfold, her head spinning. This wasn't the Mafia of movies and television, brutal and chaotic. This was strategic, methodical, almost corporate in its precision. What about the immediate threat, she asked, surprising herself by speaking up. If Vincent is desperate, won't he try again? Everyone turned to look at her. Agent Kim smiled slightly. Good question. Marcus? We've already increased security at all of Mr. Moretti's properties and businesses, Marcus said. Belladonna is closed for the week for renovations. Anyone close to the situation has been briefed and protected. That includes you, Dominic added, his eyes on Lena. 24-hour protection, armed security, safe houses, everything necessary. For how long? Until Vincent is in federal custody or no longer a threat. The way Dominic said it left little doubt which outcome he preferred. The meeting continued for another hour, covering contingencies and timelines and legal strategies that made Lena's head spin. But beneath the tactical planning, she sensed something else. A coiled readiness, a group of people who'd worked together long enough to move like a single organism. Finally, Agent Kim stood. I'll brief my team and coordinate with the surveillance operation. Dominic, I need your word you won't take independent action. You have it, he said, as long as Lena remains safe. That's not... Agent Kim stopped, reading something in his expression. Keep me informed, all channels. After everyone left, Lena found herself alone with Dominic again. Exhaustion pulled at her, but her mind refused to settle. You must think I'm insane, she said quietly, for staying. I think you're brave. Dominic poured fresh whiskey. Possibly too brave for your own good, says the man dismantling organized crime. That's different. I was born into this. You chose it. Did I? Lena accepted the glass. Or did Kyle force my hand by making safety impossible anywhere else? Dominic was silent for a moment. Do you regret pressing charges against him? No, but I wonder sometimes if I'd have had the courage without you. She met his eyes. You said helping me helps you sleep better, but I think you've helped me more than you know, not just with safety and resources. You helped me remember I'm allowed to be angry, allowed to fight back. You've always had that strength. Maybe, but I'd forgotten how to access it. Lena set down her glass. So what happens now? We wait for Vincent to make another move? We accelerate his collapse while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. Dominic's strategic mind was clearly already working through scenarios. You'll return to work at Belladonna when it reopens. I'll maintain my usual routines. Security will be invisible but constant. You want to use me as bait. I want Vincent to see that his intimidation failed. Dominic's voice went cold. That threatening you only strengthened my resolve. The psychological warfare works both ways. Lena should have been frightened by the calculation in his voice. Instead, she felt something fierce and hot unfurl in her chest. Teach me. What? If I'm going to be part of this, I need to know how to protect myself, not just rely on bodyguards and safe houses. She straightened her spine. Teach me how to be less vulnerable. Dominic studied her, conflict clear in his expression. Lena, I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for help. She held his gaze. You said I don't have to stay weak. Prove it. Something shifted in the air between them. Dominic moved closer, not touching but near enough that she could feel the heat of his presence. If I teach you, you have to commit completely. Half measures will get you killed. I'm not interested in half measures anymore. Then we start tomorrow. His voice dropped to something almost gentle. But tonight, you rest. The guest room is upstairs, second door. Everything you need is there. Lena didn't move. Where will you be? Downstairs, making sure you're safe. Dominic. She reached out, her fingers brushing his hand. Thank you. For the honesty. For treating me like someone strong enough to handle the truth. His hand turned, catching hers, thumb stroking across her knuckles. You are strong enough. You've always been strong enough. I'm just helping you remember. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither seemed ready to name. Then Dominic released her hand and stepped back. Sleep, he said quietly. Tomorrow, we start building your armor. Lena climbed the stairs to the guest room, her body exhausted but her mind racing. Through the window, she could see the lights of Brooklyn spreading out beneath her, a city full of danger and possibility. 3 months ago, she'd been invisible, a ghost moving through her own life. Now she was choosing to become something else entirely. She just hoped she survived long enough to discover what. The next morning, Lena woke to the smell of coffee and found Dominic in the kitchen, somehow looking immaculate despite clearly not having slept. He handed her a cup without a word. When do we start? She asked. Now. He gestured to the brownstone's basement. Self-defense first, then situational awareness, then strategic thinking. The basement had been converted into a training facility. Mats on the floor, equipment along the walls, mirrors reflecting every angle. A woman in workout clothes stood waiting, lean and dangerous. This is Sophia, Dominic said. Former Israeli military, current head of my personal security detail. She's going to teach you how to hurt people. Sophia smiled, sharp and knowing. And more importantly, how not to get hurt. Stripped down to workout clothes. We've got a lot of ground to cover. For the next 4 hours, Lena learned how her body could become a weapon, where to strike to disable an attacker, how to use momentum and leverage against superior strength, the psychological tactics of projecting confidence even when terrified. Sophia was merciless but patient, pushing Lena past exhaustion into a space where instinct took over. Again, Sophia commanded after Lena had hit the mat for the 20th time. Faster, don't think, react. Lena hauled herself up, muscles screaming. This time when Sophia attacked, her body moved without conscious thought. Dodge, strike, leverage, escape. She ended up behind Sophia with a training knife pressed to the instructor's throat. Better, Sophia grinned. Much better. You're learning to turn fear into fuel. I'm learning I'm tougher than I thought, Lena panted. You always were. You just needed permission to show it. They broke for lunch, protein and vegetables that Dominic had somehow arranged to appear, before moving into the next phase. Situational awareness training with Marcus, who taught her to read environments, identify exits, spot potential threats before they materialized. Most victims never see the attack coming, Marcus explained, walking her through various scenarios. Because they're not looking. You need to always be looking. Sounds exhausting. It becomes second nature, like checking mirrors while driving. He gestured to the street outside. Tell me what you see. Lena studied the brownstone street. 3 people walking, 1 couple with a stroller, 2 cars parked illegally, a delivery truck. Good start. Now tell me what matters. She looked again, this time paying attention to details. The man across the street isn't walking anywhere specific. He's circling, and that sedan, the windows are tinted too dark to be legal. Marcus nodded, impressed. You're a fast learner. What do you do? Note the details. Look for backup exits. Keep my phone ready. Lena glanced at him. And don't panic. Exactly. Fear makes you stupid. Control makes you dangerous. By evening, Lena could barely move. Every muscle ached. Her brain felt overloaded with information about threat assessment and defensive tactics and psychological warfare. But she also felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Powerful. Dominic found her on the brownstone's roof, watching the sunset paint Brooklyn in shades of amber and gold. He handed her a glass of wine and settled beside her. How are you feeling? He asked. Like I've been hit by a truck. In the best way possible. Lena sipped the wine, savoring the moment of peace. Thank you for this, for helping me become something other than a victim. You were never a victim. You were a survivor who hadn't learned to fight back yet. What's the difference? Intention. Dominic's voice carried quiet conviction. Surviving is enduring. Fighting back is choosing. You've been choosing since the moment you walked into my life. Lena turned to look at him, this complicated man who'd crashed into her carefully controlled world. Why me, Dominic? Really? I know you said it helps you sleep better, that it's about your sister, but there's something else. He was silent for a long moment, his profile sharp against the dying light. Do you remember the first night I came to Belladonna? 6 months ago. You ordered the Barolo and Ossobuco. I'd just come from identifying a body. One of my men, killed by Vincent's people. He had a daughter. Dominic's jaw tightened. 8 years old. I was trying to figure out how to tell her that her father wasn't coming home, and then I saw you. I don't understand. You were invisible, moving through that restaurant like you were trying not to exist. He met her eyes, and I recognized it. That specific kind of survival, making yourself small to avoid predators. My sister used to move like that, before she died. Lena's breath caught. I told myself I was just watching, making sure you were safe. But the truth is, I was looking for a chance to do what I couldn't do for Isabella, to protect someone before it was too late. Dominic's voice roughened. Selfish motivation, using you to absolve my own guilt. That's not selfish, that's human. It's both. He turned to face her fully. And somewhere in these past months, it stopped being about guilt and started being about you. Your strength, your courage, the way you refused to stay broken even when breaking would be easier. The air between them shifted, charged with something too complicated to name. Lena's heart pounded against her ribs. Dominic. His phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression going cold. We need to go inside. What's wrong? Kyle Mercer made bail an hour ago. The words hit like ice water. Lena had been so focused on Vincent Russo's threat that she'd almost forgotten her original predator. How? Jennifer said, his mother mortgaged her house, paid the full amount. Dominic was already moving, his phone to his ear. Marcus, we have a secondary threat active. Kyle Mercer is out. I need full surveillance on his location and increased security on Lena immediately. Lena followed him inside, her training from today suddenly feeling desperately inadequate. He'll come after me. Yes, but he'll have to go through me first. Dominic's voice carried absolute certainty. And unlike Vincent, Kyle has no idea what he's walking into. I should call Jennifer. Already done. She's filing emergency motions to revoke bail based on flight risk and continued harassment. Dominic pulled up security feeds on his tablet. But legal moves take time. In the meantime, you don't go anywhere without protection. Lena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She showed Dominic, who nodded. She answered on speaker. Hello? Lena, baby. Kyle's voice slurred and angry. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. You're violating the restraining order by calling. You think I care about some piece of paper? You think your new boyfriend can protect you? Kyle laughed, ugly and sharp. I know where you are. I know everything, and I'm coming for what's mine. Dominic took the phone smoothly. Kyle Mercer. This is Dominic Moretti. You're currently being recorded and traced. Every word you're saying is evidence that will be used to revoke your bail and file additional charges. Silence on the other end. But more importantly, Dominic continued, his voice dropping to something cold and lethal, if you come anywhere near Lana, you won't live long enough to regret it. The legal system is slow. I am not. Consider this your only warning. He hung up. Lena stared at him, her pulse racing. You just threatened him. I promised him consequences. There's a difference. Dominic pulled up tracking software. The call came from Queens. He's at his mother's house. Marcus will have surveillance there within the hour. This is insane. I'm being hunted by my ex and your Mafia rival simultaneously? Yes. Dominic moved closer, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Which is why you're not going anywhere alone. Why you keep training. Why you trust your instincts and the people protecting you. What if it's not enough? Then we escalate. His eyes held hers. But I need you to trust me, Lena. Can you do that? She thought about everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. The shooting, the revelations, the training. This man who'd inserted himself into her life and turned it completely upside down. She should be terrified, should be running. Instead, she felt clear-headed and focused in a way she'd never experienced. I trust you, she said quietly. Don't make me regret it. Something fierce and possessive flashed in Dominic's eyes. I won't. That's a promise. His phone buzzed again. He checked it, his expression shifting. Vincent just moved against one of my shipping facilities. Attempted arson, stopped by security. He's escalating. He's desperate. Dominic was already typing, coordinating responses. Which means we're winning. Lena watched him work, this dangerous man fighting battles on multiple fronts to keep her safe. She should feel like a burden. Instead, she felt like something else entirely, like someone worth protecting, like someone worth fighting for. And for the first time in her life, she was beginning to believe it. The next 72 hours became a masterclass in controlled chaos. Lena watched Dominic orchestrate a multi-front campaign with the precision of a general commanding troops. FBI surveillance equipment went into Vincent's Red Hook warehouse. Legal motions flooded the courts, targeting Kyle's bail status. Security rotations shifted hourly, keeping potential threats off balance. And through it all, Lena continued training. Your body remembers fear, Sophia explained during their fourth session, watching Lena execute a disarm sequence. We're teaching it to remember power instead. Lena slammed her training partner, one of Marcus's younger security guys, into the mat with satisfying force. How long before it becomes instinct? For most people? Months? For you? Sophia smiled. You're already halfway there. Survival skills transfer faster than you'd think. Meaning what? Meaning you've been reading threats and calculating escape routes for years. We're just giving you better tools. Sophia pulled her to her feet. Again. This time, multiple attackers. By the time Lena emerged from the basement, sweating and bruised, Dominic was waiting with water and an update. Kyle's bail hearing is tomorrow morning, he said. Jennifer's confident the judge will revoke based on the threatening phone call in violation of the restraining order. And if they don't, then we adapt. Dominic's voice carried no doubt, only certainty. But the evidence is overwhelming. Kyle destroyed his own case by being unable to control himself. Lena drank deeply, her muscles aching in ways that felt earned rather than inflicted. What about Vincent? Patience. Something dangerous flickered in Dominic's eyes. The surveillance at Red Hook is gathering exactly what we need. Construction fraud, union intimidation, tax evasion. Vincent's been sloppy because he's never had to be careful. That ends this week. You sound certain. I am. Desperate men make mistakes. Vincent's made 3 in the past 72 hours alone. Dominic pulled up security footage on his tablet. He's bleeding money trying to shore up his operations, borrowing from people who don't forgive debt, making promises he can't keep. How do you know all this? Because I used to be him, before I chose a different path. Dominic's jaw tightened. I know exactly how this plays out. The question is whether he realizes it before it's too late. Lena studied his profile, seeing shadows of the man he'd been beneath the control he'd built. Do you regret it? The transition? Every day. And not at all. He met her eyes. I regret the people I hurt building the empire I'm now dismantling. I don't regret choosing to become someone my sister would have been proud to know. The raw honesty in his voice made Lena's chest ache. She would be proud. I'm sure of it. Maybe. Dominic's expression softened slightly. Isabella was always the believer. She thought people could change, choose better, become more than their circumstances. I thought she was naive. Turned out she was just optimistic. There's a difference. Naive people don't see danger. Optimistic people see it and choose hope anyway. He gestured to Lena. You're optimistic. Staying here when you could run. Training to fight when hiding would be safer. That's not naivety. That's courage. Before Lena could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. Boss, we have a problem. Dominic's entire demeanor shifted. What kind? Kyle Mercer just showed up at Belladonna. He's outside on the street, shouting Lena's name. Ice flooded Lena's veins. The restaurant's closed. He knows I'm not there. He knows, Marcus confirmed. This is theater. Witnesses, cameras, forcing a public confrontation. He's trying to make you look like you're hiding. Smart, Dominic said coldly. Unstable, but smart. What's our security posture? The building's locked down. Police have been called. But he's not actually on the property, so they can't arrest him without evidence of intent. Then we give them evidence. Dominic pulled out his phone. Get me live feed from Belladonna's exterior cameras, and pull up Kyle's GPS location from his ankle monitor. Lena blinked. He has an ankle monitor? Condition of bail, which he's currently violating by being within 500 feet of your workplace. Dominic's fingers moved across his screen with lethal efficiency. Jennifer, I'm sending you real-time footage and GPS data showing Kyle Mercer violating his restraining order and bail conditions. How fast can you get this in front of a judge? Lena couldn't hear Jennifer's response, but Dominic smiled grimly. Perfect. Do it. He ended the call and pulled up the live feed. On the screen, Kyle paced the sidewalk outside Belladonna, clearly agitated. His voice carried even through the camera's limited audio. Lena, I know you're hiding behind your rich boyfriend. Come out here and face me like an adult. People on the street were stopping, filming on their phones. Exactly what Kyle wanted. Public attention, social pressure, the appearance of being the wronged party. He's playing the victim, Lena said quietly, making it look like I'm the one being unreasonable. Let him. Dominic's voice carried cold satisfaction. Every second he stands there, he's building the case against himself. Jennifer's already filed emergency revocation. Police are en route with an arrest warrant. He's done. What if he runs? He won't. Watch. On screen, 2 police cruisers pulled up. Officers emerged, approaching Kyle with practiced caution. Lena couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw the moment Kyle realized his mistake. His face went from angry to panicked as an officer showed him paperwork. That's the revocation warrant, Dominic explained. Bail revoked. Immediate arrest. No bond. Kyle Mercer just guaranteed himself jail time until trial. Lena watched Kyle being handcuffed, still shouting, still playing the victim even as he was placed in the back of a cruiser. Part of her felt vindicated. Another part just felt exhausted. Is it really over? She asked. This part is. Kyle will sit in jail for the next 6 to 8 months waiting for trial. After that, he's looking at 2 to 5 years for the harassment charges, plus whatever else the DA adds. Dominic closed the tablet. He can't hurt you anymore. The relief should have been overwhelming. Instead, Lena felt oddly hollow. I spent 2 years running from him, and it ends with paperwork and ankle monitors. That's how most battles end, not with explosions, but with bureaucracy. Dominic moved closer. Does it feel anticlimactic? Yes. And no. Lena struggled to articulate the tangle of emotions. I wanted him to understand what he did to me. Wanted him to feel even a fraction of the fear he caused, but he'll never get it. He'll die thinking he was the victim. Probably. Men like Kyle rarely achieve self-awareness. Dominic's voice gentled. But his understanding isn't required for your healing. You survived him, pressed charges, stood your ground. Whether he comprehends his crimes is irrelevant. You're free of him either way. The simple truth of that settled something in Lena's chest. One threat down. One threat down, Dominic agreed, which means we can focus completely on Vincent. As if summoned by his name, Dominic's phone rang. He checked the screen, his expression hardening. Agent Kim, this should be interesting. He put it on speaker. Sarah, tell me you have good news. Define good. Agent Kim's voice carried grim satisfaction. The surveillance at Red Hook hit the jackpot. We have Vincent on camera and audio discussing bid rigging, union intimidation, tax fraud, and this is the big one, ordering violence against a federal witness. Dominic went very still. Which witness? You. The conversation happened this morning. Vincent ordered a hit on you to stop your cooperation with our investigation. Lena's blood turned to ice. Dominic's expression remained neutral, but his eyes went cold and dark. That's a federal crime, he said quietly. Multiple federal crimes. Conspiracy to commit murder of a federal witness, obstruction of justice, and about 15 other charges we can pile on. Agent Kim paused. We can move tonight. Full SWAT team, coordinated raids on all of Vincent's properties. He'll be in federal custody by morning. Do it! Dominic's voice carried absolute finality. And Sarah? Make sure he knows why. That threatening me was what ended him. Gladly. I'll call you when he's in custody. After she hung up, silence filled the brownstone. Lena stared at Dominic, processing the magnitude of what she'd just heard. Vincent ordered your death. Yes. And you're completely calm about it. Because I expected it. Vincent's out of moves and out of money. Killing me was his only remaining option. But Dominic's tactical mind was clearly already working through scenarios. But ordering the hit on a monitored line, that's desperation making him stupid. What if he has people already in motion? What if the hit's happening right now? Then they'll encounter security measures Vincent doesn't know exist. Dominic gestured to the brownstone's reinforced structure. This building has protection most government facilities would envy. We're safe here. For how long? As long as necessary. He met her eyes. But after tonight, we won't need to hide. Vincent Russo's empire ends at dawn. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, Lena felt anxiety crawl up her spine. Something's wrong. This feels too easy. Dominic's expression sharpened. Explain. Vincent's desperate, right? He knows you're cooperating with the FBI. He knows his operations are collapsing. Lena paced, her training kicking in, read the environment, anticipate threats, trust instincts. So why would he order a hit on a monitored line? Unless he wanted you to know. Unless he's using himself as bait. Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then Dominic pulled out his phone. Marcus, pull everyone back to defensive positions. Now. Boss? Vincent might be running a misdirection. The hit order could be cover for something else. Dominic was already moving through the brownstone, checking security feeds. Where's our most vulnerable point? Belladonna, Marcus said immediately. We locked it down after Kyle's stunt, but most of the security team redeployed here after Agent Kim's call. How many people are still at the restaurant? 2, plus building security. Dominic's jaw tightened. Not enough. Get a full team there within 10 minutes, and check for... An explosion lit up the night sky to the south. Even from Brooklyn, they could see the fireball rising over Manhattan. Lena's heart stopped. What was that? Dominic's phone erupted with calls. He answered Marcus first. Report. Belladonna just exploded. The whole building's on fire. First responders are en route, but... Marcus's voice cracked slightly. Boss, we have people inside. The color drained from Dominic's face. Who? Anton and Rodriguez. They were doing final security checks when... Get rescue teams there immediately. Spare no expense. I want those men found. Dominic's voice remained controlled, but Lena saw his hands shaking. And find out how Vincent got explosives past our security. He ended the call and stood frozen for a moment, staring at the distant flames. Lena recognized the look in his eyes. The same helpless rage she'd felt watching Kyle destroy her apartment. Dominic, she said quietly. He bombed a restaurant, a public building. People could have been inside. Customers, staff, innocent people. Dominic's voice dropped to something cold and lethal. Vincent just crossed every line that mattered. Your men are trained for this, but training doesn't matter if the building collapsed. He pulled out his phone again, making rapid calls. I need medical teams at Belladonna, full trauma response, and I need Agent Kim to accelerate the raids. Vincent Russo doesn't get to see another sunrise. Lena watched him coordinate the response with brutal efficiency, but beneath the control she saw something else. Guilt. The same guilt he carried for his sister, now compounded by 2 more people who'd been hurt protecting his interests. This isn't your fault, she said. They were there because of me, because I asked them to protect something I owned. That makes it my responsibility. Dominic's eyes met hers. Just like you being shot at was my responsibility. Just like every person who gets caught in this war is my responsibility. That's not... It is. He moved to the windows, watching the distant flames. This is why I've been trying to get out. Why I've been cooperating with the FBI, dismantling operations, going legitimate. Because this... He gestured to the burning skyline. This is what the old world looks like. Violence and destruction and innocent people caught in the crossfire. But you're stopping it. You're the one working to end this. By creating more casualties along the way. Dominic's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression shifting. Anton and Rodriguez are alive, injured but stable. They got out through a service exit before the main explosion. Relief flooded through Lena. Thank God. Thank their training. But some of the tension left Dominic's shoulders. They're being transported to Mount Sinai. I need to... Go, Lena said immediately. Be there for your people. I'm not leaving you unprotected. Then take me with you. She grabbed her jacket. I'm not sitting here alone while you deal with this. Dominic studied her for a moment, clearly weighing options. Then he nodded. Stay close. Don't leave my sight. Understood? Understood. The drive to Mount Sinai took 20 minutes through late-night traffic. Dominic made calls the entire way, coordinating security responses, speaking with Agent Kim about accelerating the raids, checking on his injured men. Lena sat beside him, watching this man juggle multiple crises with the same controlled precision he brought to everything. At the hospital, they found Anton and Rodriguez in the emergency department, both conscious, both angry about being caught in the blast. Boss, I'm sorry, Anton said immediately, his face covered in soot and minor burns. We should have caught the explosives before. You survived. That's all that matters. Dominic's voice carried absolute conviction. The building is replaceable. You're not. Vincent's guys must have planted the devices days ago, before we increased security, Rodriguez added, his arm in a temporary sling. Probably remote detonated once they knew we were inside. Attempted murder of my personnel. Dominic's expression went cold. Add it to the federal charges. A doctor appeared, efficiently professional. Mr. Moretti, your employees are stable, minor burns, some smoke inhalation, possible concussions. We'd like to keep them overnight for observation. Whatever they need, bill everything to me directly. Dominic turned to his men. Rest, recover. Your jobs are secure and your medical expenses covered. Focus on healing. After the doctor left, Lena pulled Dominic aside. You care about them, your people. They're not just employees. They're soldiers in a war I started. His jaw tightened. Of course I care about them. Kyle never cared about anyone he hurt. Vincent clearly doesn't either. Lena met his eyes. That's the difference between you and them. That's why you're going to win. Before Dominic could respond, his phone rang. Agent Kim. Talk to me, he answered. Raids are happening now. Simultaneous hits on all of Vincent's properties. We have him at his estate in Westchester, completely blindsided. Agent Kim's satisfaction came through clearly. He's in federal custody within the hour. It's over, Dominic. Not until he's in a cell where he can't order any more attacks. Dominic's voice remained hard. What about his people, the ones who planted the explosives? Already identified from traffic cameras near Belladonna. SWAT teams are moving on their locations now. Agent Kim paused. This is a clean sweep. Vincent's entire organization is collapsing as we speak. By morning, there won't be anything left of his empire. Good. Dominic's voice carried grim satisfaction. Keep me updated. After he hung up, Lena watched emotions flicker across his face. Relief, anger, exhaustion, something that might have been grief. It's really over, she said quietly. This part is. But there will be trials, testimony, retaliation attempts from what's left of Vincent's network. Dominic rubbed his face, suddenly looking older than his years. The war might be over, but the cleanup takes years. Then we handle the cleanup, together. The word hung between them, together. Lena hadn't planned to say it, but once it was out, she realized she meant it completely. Somewhere in the chaos of the past week, she'd stopped thinking of this as Dominic's war and started thinking of it as theirs. Dominic's eyes searched her face. You should be running. After tonight, after seeing what this world really looks like, you should be taking the first escape route away from me. Probably. Lena moved closer. But I told you before. I'm tired of running, and I meant it. Lena, I know this is complicated. I know you're dangerous, and this life is violent, and there are no guarantees. She held his gaze. But for the first time in years, I feel alive instead of just surviving. That's worth fighting for. Something shifted in Dominic's expression, the careful control cracking to reveal raw emotion beneath. You have no idea what you're saying. Then tell me. Stop protecting me from the truth and let me make informed decisions. Lena stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of his body. What are you afraid of? Losing you. The words came out rough, unguarded. The same way I lost Isabella. The same way I lose everyone I care about, because this world destroys anything good that gets too close. I'm not Isabella, and I'm not fragile. Lena's voice strengthened. You've spent the past week teaching me to fight. Maybe it's time you trusted that the training worked. Dominic's hand came up, cupping her face with devastating gentleness. If something happened to you because of me, then I'd face it the same way I'm facing everything else, with my eyes open and my spine straight. She turned her face into his palm. I'm not asking for promises or guarantees. I'm asking you to stop pushing me away because you're afraid. For a long moment, Dominic simply looked at her. Then he leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Or the most foolish. Both, probably. His thumb stroked across her cheekbone. But I'm too selfish to keep pushing you away. Even knowing the danger. Even knowing I should. Good. Lena's heart pounded against her ribs. Because I'm not going anywhere. The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable. Soft and fierce, and weighted with everything they'd survived to reach this moment. Lena's hands fisted in his jacket, pulling him closer, and Dominic responded with controlled intensity that made her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic's eyes held something Lena had never seen before. Hope. We should go, he said quietly. Before I forget, we're in a hospital and create a scandal. Lena laughed, the sound startling both of them. When was the last time she'd laughed without fear underlying it? Where to? The brownstone, where you can rest while I coordinate the aftermath of tonight. Dominic's tactical mind was clearly already working. Tomorrow, we deal with insurance, reconstruction, legal proceedings. Tonight, you sleep. And you? I'll sleep when Vincent's in a Supermax facility where he can't threaten anyone ever again. But his voice held less edge than before, as if some burden had lightened. They drove back to Brooklyn in comfortable silence, Lena's hand resting on Dominic's thigh, his fingers intertwined with hers. The city sprawled around them, damaged but not broken, violent but not defeated. Like them. At the brownstone, Dominic walked her upstairs to the guest room. At the door, he paused. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For staying. For choosing this. For being brave enough to see past the danger to what we could be. His hand came up, brushing hair back from her face. I don't deserve you, but I'm too grateful to have you to pretend otherwise. Lena rose on her toes, kissing him softly. Stop talking about deserving. We both survived hell to get here. That's enough. After he left, Lena lay in bed watching the ceiling, her body exhausted but her mind racing. Kyle was in jail. Vincent would be in federal custody by morning. The immediate threats had been neutralized. But she wasn't naive enough to think the danger was completely over. Dominic had enemies beyond Vincent. The transition from his old life to his new one would create complications for years, and she'd just chosen to face all of it beside him. Lena closed her eyes, feeling not fear, but anticipation. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running from danger. She was running toward something worth the risk, toward partnership, toward power, toward a future she'd build with her own hands instead of accepting whatever scraps felt safe, toward love. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. Dawn broke over Brooklyn with the kind of clarity that only followed storms. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of fresh coffee drifting up from downstairs. For a moment, disorientation clouded her thoughts. Then memory returned. The explosion, the hospital, the kiss that had changed everything. She found Dominic in the kitchen, looking like he hadn't slept but somehow still composed. He handed her coffee without a word, his eyes carrying shadows she hadn't seen before. Vincent's in federal custody, he said quietly. Arraignments this afternoon. Agent Kim says the charges will keep him locked up for the rest of his natural life. That's good news. It should be. Dominic stared into his coffee. But 3 of his men are still unaccounted for. The ones who planted the explosives. Lena's stomach tightened. You think they'll retaliate? I think desperate men with nothing to lose are the most dangerous kind. He pulled up security footage on his tablet. Marcus has teams canvassing their known locations. FBI has warrants out. But until they're in custody, we maintain full security protocols. How long? As long as it takes. Dominic met her eyes. I won't risk you, Lena. Not when we're this close to actual safety. The protectiveness in his voice made her chest ache. What about Belladonna? Can it be rebuilt? The structure's salvageable. Insurance will cover most of the damage. His jaw tightened. But rebuilding takes months. The staff needs income now. I'm covering their salaries until we reopen, but some of them might not want to come back after this. Can you blame them? No, which is why I'm offering severance packages and job placement assistance to anyone who wants out. Dominic's voice carried the weight of responsibility. They didn't sign up for bombings and Mafia wars. They signed up to serve food. Lena watched him shoulder yet another burden with quiet determination. You're a good man, Dominic Moretti. I'm a man trying to be better than I was. He reached across the table, his fingers finding hers. You make that easier. Before Lena could respond, his phone buzzed. Marcus. Talk to me, Dominic answered. We found 2 of Vincent's men. FBI has them in custody. Marcus paused. But the third one, Carlo Vega, is in the wind. Last known location was near the Tribeca apartment. Every muscle in Dominic's body tensed. The one where Lena was staying? Yes. Building security reported a suspicious person matching his description loitering outside yesterday evening. We increased patrols, but he hasn't returned. Because he already accomplished what he needed to. Dominic was already moving, grabbing his jacket. He was casing the location, learning patterns, preparing. For what? Lena asked, fear crawling up her spine. For a final play. Dominic's voice went cold. Vincent's in custody, his empire's collapsing, but Carlo was his most loyal enforcer, the kind of man who'd burn everything down out of spite. You think he's coming after you? After us. Dominic pulled Lena to her feet. We're leaving. Now. Marcus, get a full team to the backup location in Connecticut. We're going dark until Carlo's contained. Boss, Connecticut's 3 hours away. If Carlo's already in motion, then we move faster than he does. Dominic's tactical mind was clearly racing through scenarios. Alert all security personnel. Full lockdown on all properties. And get me Agent Kim. I want federal resources on this immediately. 20 minutes later, they were in a black SUV heading north out of the city. 2 security vehicles flanked them, Marcus driving with military precision while Dominic coordinated responses from the passenger seat. Lena sat in the back, watching New York disappear behind them and trying to ignore the anxiety clawing at her chest. What if he's not after us? What if he's just running? Then we've lost nothing by being cautious. Dominic turned to look at her. But men like Carlo don't run. They finish what they start. What did he start? Vincent's war against me. And by extension, against you. His expression hardened. Carlo was there the night they shot up Belladonna. He helped plant the explosives. This isn't business for him anymore. It's personal. The certainty in his voice made Lena's blood run cold. So we hide in Connecticut until the FBI finds him. We secure our position and let him make the mistake of coming to us on ground we control. Dominic pulled up building schematics on his tablet. The Connecticut property is a fortress. 20 acres, advanced security systems, clear sight lines in every direction. If Carlo wants a fight, he'll have to survive approaching it first. 2 hours into the drive, Agent Kim called. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Carlo Vega just posted bail for Vincent Russo. Silence filled the SUV. Then Dominic's voice, cold as winter. Explain how that's possible. Vincent's attorney argued that the explosion evidence was circumstantial since none of his men have directly implicated him. The judge set bail at $10 million. Agent Kim's frustration came through clearly. We didn't think anyone could raise that kind of money, but Carlo liquidated something, we're still tracking what, and paid the full amount an hour ago. Vincent's out. Lena's voice came out smaller than she intended. For now, we're appealing, filing additional charges, doing everything possible to get him back in custody. Agent Kim paused. But Dominic, you need to assume Vincent and Carlo are working together. Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon. Understood. Dominic's mind was clearly already adapting to the new threat level. Keep me updated on any movement from either of them. After he hung up, Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. Boss, if Vincent's out, Connecticut might not be far enough. He has resources we haven't accounted for. Then we account for them now. Dominic pulled up financial records. Vincent's liquidating assets to pay Carlo's bail posting. That means he's all in on whatever final play he's making. Track every property sale, every wire transfer, every move he makes. What are you thinking? Lena asked. That Vincent Russo is a proud man who just spent 24 hours in federal custody being treated like a common criminal. Dominic's voice carried grim certainty. Men like that don't retreat quietly. They go out in a blaze of glory, trying to take their enemies with them. The Connecticut property emerged from dense forest like something out of a thriller. Modern architecture blending with natural surroundings, glass and steel hidden behind carefully maintained wilderness. Security gates opened at their approach, revealing a driveway that wound through trees before reaching the main house. This is your backup safe house? Lena breathed, taking in the sprawling structure. One of them. Dominic helped her out of the SUV. Isabella loved this place. She used to say it felt like being able to breathe again after drowning in the city. The mention of his sister made Lena look at him more closely. You don't come here often, do you? Not since she died. Too many memories. He gestured to the house. But it's the most defensible property I own. That matters more than nostalgia right now. Inside, the house was beautiful in an understated way. High ceilings, natural light, furniture that looked comfortable rather than expensive. But beneath the aesthetic, Lena noticed the security measures. Reinforced windows, camera systems disguised as light fixtures, panic rooms hidden behind ordinary doors. Marcus, set up a command center in the study, Dominic ordered. I want surveillance on every approach, satellite monitoring of the surrounding area, and direct communication with the FBI. If Vincent or Carlo so much as breathes in our direction, I want to know about it. Already on it, boss. Dominic turned to Lena. You should rest. We might not have another chance for a while. I can't rest knowing they're out there planning something. Lena followed him through the house. What's Vincent's endgame? If his empire's already destroyed, what does he gain by coming after you now? Revenge? Pride. The satisfaction of hurting me before he goes down permanently. Dominic's voice carried the weight of understanding his enemy too well. Vincent built his identity on being untouchable. I proved he's not. That kind of humiliation demands retaliation. Even if it means dying in the process? Especially then. Better to die fighting than live in defeat. Dominic stopped in front of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the forest. I understand that impulse. I felt it myself. When? When Isabella died, I wanted to burn down everything connected to her killer, destroy his family, his friends, everyone who'd ever helped him. His reflection in the glass showed old pain. I almost did it too. Had the resources, the justification, the rage. What stopped you? Agent Kim. She showed me that revenge was just another cage, that I could choose to honor Isabella by becoming someone she'd be proud of instead of someone who perpetuated the cycle that killed her. Dominic turned to face Lena. Vincent doesn't have anyone to show him that choice, so he'll choose destruction. The certainty in his voice settled like ice in Lena's stomach. You think he's going to die? I think he's going to try to take me with him, and I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. Before Lena could respond, alarms erupted throughout the house. Marcus's voice came through speakers, urgent and controlled. Boss, we have movement on the northern perimeter. Single vehicle approaching fast. No identification. Dominic's entire demeanor shifted to combat readiness. Lock down the property, get everyone to defensive positions, and get me visual confirmation of who's in that vehicle. He pulled Lena toward the center of the house, to what looked like a library but was actually a reinforced safe room. Stay here. Don't come out until I personally tell you it's clear. Dominic, please. His hands framed her face. I need to know you're safe so I can focus on ending this. Please, Lena. The raw emotion in his voice made her nod. Be careful. Always. He kissed her hard and fast, then disappeared into the tactical response, leaving Lena alone in the safe room with her racing heart and mounting fear. Through security monitors built into the walls, Lena watched the situation unfold. The approaching vehicle, a black sedan with tinted windows, screeched to a halt at the outer gate. The driver's door opened. A woman emerged, hands raised, clearly terrified. Marcus's voice came through the comms. "Boss, you need to see this." On the monitor, Lena watched Dominic approach the gate with his security team, weapons drawn. The woman was young, maybe early 20s, with dark hair and Vincent's distinctive features. "Don't shoot!" she screamed. "Please, I'm Sophia Russo, Vincent's daughter. He sent me with a message." Dominic went very still. "What message?" "He has people at every property you own, every business, every location connected to you." Sophia's voice shook. "He's going to destroy all of it unless you meet him. Alone. Tonight." "Where?" "The warehouse district in Red Hook, the one where you've been gathering evidence against him." Sophia pulled out a phone, hands trembling. "He said to bring your FBI friends if you want. He doesn't care anymore. He just wants to face you one last time." Dominic studied her for a long moment. "Why send you? Why not call himself?" "Because he knew you wouldn't believe him. Wouldn't trust it wasn't a trap." Tears streamed down Sophia's face. "But I'm his daughter. I have nothing to gain from this. I just want it to end before more people die." "What does he plan to do at the warehouse?" "I don't know. He wouldn't tell me. Just said that you'd understand when you got there." Sophia's voice broke. "Please, I know what my father is. I know what he's done. But he's still my father, and I don't want to watch him die tonight." The raw honesty in her words seemed to reach Dominic. His stance relaxed slightly. "Did he hurt you? Force you to do this?" "No, I volunteered because someone needs to end this before the whole city burns down." Sophia lowered her hand slowly. "Will you meet him?" Dominic was silent for a long moment. Then, "Tell your father I'll be there at midnight, alone like he requested. But tell him also that if this is a trap, if he's harmed anyone else, the consequences will be biblical." "I'll tell him." Sophia turned back toward her car, then paused. "Mr. Moretti? I'm sorry. For all of it. My father's crimes aren't my responsibility, but I'm sorry you had to suffer them anyway." After she left, Dominic returned to the house. Lena emerged from the safe room to find him in the study, already coordinating with Agent Kim and his security team. "You're not seriously considering this," she said. "I'm absolutely considering it." Dominic's voice was calm, controlled. "Vincent's offering a final confrontation on terms we can control. That's better than waiting for him to strike when and where we're not prepared." "It's obviously a trap." "Of course it's a trap, but it's a trap we'll see coming." He gestured to the monitors showing tactical preparations. "Agent Kim is positioning FBI teams around the warehouse. Marcus will have snipers on every rooftop. I'll be wired with audio and video, wearing body armor, and carrying enough firepower to end a small war. And if that's not enough, then I die knowing I protected you." The simple certainty in his voice made Lena's chest constrict. "But I don't plan to die tonight. I plan to end Vincent Russo permanently and finally be free of this war." Lena moved closer, her hands gripping his arms. "Let the FBI handle it. You don't need to be the one who faces him." "Yes, I do." Dominic's eyes held hers. "This war started because I chose to transition away from the life Vincent represents. It ends with me proving that choice was right, that there's a path forward that doesn't require violence and destruction. By walking into a trap? By showing Vincent that even when he has every advantage, even when he's desperate and dangerous, he still can't win. Not against someone who's already decided to be better." Dominic pulled her close. "I'm not being reckless, Lena. I'm being strategic, and I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing." She wanted to argue, wanted to find some way to stop him from risking everything on a confrontation that felt inevitable and terrible. But she also understood the weight he carried, the responsibility for everyone caught in this war, the need to end it decisively so no one else got hurt. "Promise me you'll come back," she whispered against his chest. "I promise." His arms tightened around her. "I have too much to live for now to throw it away on pride." The hours until midnight crawled past with agonizing slowness. Dominic spent them preparing, checking weapons, coordinating with law enforcement, reviewing tactical scenarios with Marcus and his team. Lena watched him transform from the man who'd held her gently into something harder, colder, more dangerous. This was the Dominic who'd built an empire, the one who'd survived decades in a world where weakness meant death. At 11:30, he emerged wearing tactical gear that somehow looked natural on him. Body armor beneath a dark jacket, weapons concealed but accessible, communication devices hidden in plain sight. "How do I look?" he asked, a hint of dark humor in his voice. Terrifying, Lena managed a weak smile. And ready. Good. He crossed to her, his hands gentle despite the violence they were prepared to commit. Stay here with the security team. Don't leave this house for any reason. If something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. You're coming back. She kissed him, pouring every ounce of fear and hope and desperate faith into it. You promised, and I keep my promises. One last kiss, tender and fierce. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night with Marcus and his team. Lena watched through security monitors as the SUVs rolled down the driveway and vanished into darkness. Then there was nothing to do but wait. The study became a command center, monitors showing feeds from various positions around the Red Hook warehouse. Agent Kim's voice came through speakers coordinating FBI teams. Marcus's security personnel checked in from their positions. Everything was moving according to plan. Lena watched Dominic's vehicle approach the warehouse district, her heart in her throat. The area was industrial and abandoned, perfect for an ambush. But FBI teams had secured the perimeter, and snipers watched from every vantage point. Dominic emerged from the SUV at 11:58, exactly as promised. He walked toward the warehouse alone, his movements confident despite the danger. On the monitors, Lena saw Vincent emerge from the shadows. He looked older than his photographs, worn down by recent events. Carlo Vega stood beside him, massive and menacing. Dominic Moretti, Vincent's voice carried through the audio feed. You actually came. You offered a meeting. I'm a man of my word. Dominic stopped 10 feet away, hands visible but clearly armed. What do you want, Vincent? I want you to understand what you've taken from me. Vincent's voice shook with rage. My business, my reputation, my freedom. You destroyed everything I built. You destroyed it yourself the moment you chose violence over strategy. Dominic's voice remained calm. I offered you a path forward. Legitimate operations, federal cooperation, a chance to transition the same way I did. You refused. Because I'm not a traitor. Vincent's shout echoed through the empty warehouse. You collaborated with the feds, turned on your own people, betrayed everything our families built. I evolved. There's a difference. Dominic's tactical awareness was clearly tracking Carlo's position. The old world is dying, Vincent. You can die with it, or you can choose to become something more. I choose to take you with me. Vincent nodded to Carlo. On the monitors, Lena saw the massive enforcer move, but Dominic was faster, weapon drawn, shots fired with precision that spoke to training most people didn't survive long enough to acquire. Carlo went down, not dead, but injured enough to be neutralized. FBI teams converged from every direction, weapons trained on Vincent. Agent Kim's voice cut through the chaos. Vincent Russo, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and violation of federal bail conditions. Don't move. But Vincent was already moving, pulling a weapon from his coat, not aiming at the FBI agents or at Dominic, aiming at himself. You think you've won, he said, voice hollow with defeat. But this world you're building, it's weak, soft. It won't last. And when it falls, when everything you've built crumbles, remember that I told you so. Vincent, don't! Dominic started forward. The gunshot shattered the night. Vincent Russo crumpled to the ground, his weapon falling from nerveless fingers. FBI agents rushed forward, but Lena could see from the monitors that they were too late. Vincent had chosen his own ending rather than face imprisonment. On the audio feed, she heard Dominic's voice, quiet and heavy with something that might have been grief. It didn't have to end this way. Agent Kim appeared beside him. We have Carlo in custody. Medical teams are en route. It's over, Dominic. Finally over. But Lena could see Dominic standing over Vincent's body, his expression unreadable. He'd won the war, destroyed his enemy's empire, protected everyone he cared about, and somehow it still felt like a loss. The drive back to Connecticut took 3 hours. Lena waited in the study, tracking Dominic's progress through security feeds until the SUVs finally pulled up to the house. When he walked through the door, she didn't ask questions, just pulled him into her arms and held on while his carefully maintained control finally cracked. I wanted him in prison, Dominic said quietly. I wanted him to face justice, to understand what he'd done wrong. I didn't want him dead. I know. He chose it. His pride wouldn't let him survive defeat, so he chose to die instead. Dominic's voice carried exhaustion and old sorrow. Just like Isabella's killer chose death over accountability. Why do they always choose death? Because they can't imagine living without the power they built their identities on. Lena guided him to the sofa. It's not your fault, Dominic. You gave him choices. He made his own decisions. Doesn't make it easier. No. But it makes it his responsibility, not yours. She held his face in her hands. You kept your promise. You came back. That's what matters now. Dominic pulled her close, his arms tight around her as if she were the only solid thing in a world that had just shifted beneath his feet. I'm tired, Lena. So damn tired of this life. Then build a different one. She kissed his temple. You've been tearing down the old empire. Now build something new. With you? If you'll have me. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. I love you. I know it's too soon and too complicated and we barely know each other, but I love you anyway. And I want to build that new life with you beside me. The words should have terrified her. Instead, they felt like coming home. I love you too. Against all logic and common sense, I love you. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the quiet house, while the world outside slowly realized that one more piece of the old criminal empire had fallen. Vincent Russo was dead. Carlo Vega was in custody. The war was over. Now came the harder part, learning to live in peace. Morning came slowly to Connecticut, winter sunlight filtering through trees that had witnessed the night's emotional devastation. Lena woke to find Dominic already awake beside her, staring at the ceiling with the kind of stillness that spoke to minds that couldn't settle. Did you sleep at all? She asked quietly. A few hours. He turned to look at her, something vulnerable in his expression that hadn't been there before Vincent's death. I kept seeing his face, the moment he chose the gun over surrender. You can't carry that weight. He made his choice. I know. Logically, I know. Dominic sat up, running a hand through his hair. But knowing doesn't stop the questions. What if I'd approached him differently, offered different terms, found some way to reach him before he became so desperate? Lena pulled herself up beside him, her hand finding his. You spent 5 years trying to reach people like Vincent, offering them legitimate paths forward, working with the FBI to dismantle operations without destroying lives. Some people took those offers. Vincent refused. That's on him, not you. Agent Kim said the same thing last night. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. She told me to stop taking responsibility for other people's demons. Smart woman. She also said Carlo is cooperating, giving testimony about Vincent's entire operation in exchange for reduced charges. Dominic's tactical mind was clearly already processing implications, which means trials, depositions, months of legal proceedings. The cleanup I mentioned before. It starts now. And Kyle? Pled guilty to avoid trial. Sentencing is in 2 weeks, but Jennifer says he's looking at 4 years minimum. Dominic's voice carried satisfaction. By the time he's released, you'll have built a completely different life, one where he's nothing but an unpleasant memory. The certainty in those words settled something in Lena's chest. What about Belladonna? I had the insurance adjusters out yesterday. The building can be rebuilt, but it'll take 6 months minimum. He turned to face her fully, which gives us time to decide what we actually want it to become. What do you mean? The restaurant was profitable, but it was also a remnant of the old world, a place where deals were made and power was displayed. But Dominic's eyes held something new, possibility instead of obligation. We could rebuild it exactly as it was, or we could create something different, something that represents the life we're choosing instead of the one I'm leaving behind. Lena felt her pulse quicken. You're asking me to help you redesign Belladonna? I'm asking you to help me build something worth protecting, something that employs people without putting them in danger, that serves the community instead of just profiting from it. His hand cupped her face. You told me once that you had dreams before Kyle destroyed them. What were they? The question caught her off guard. Lena had spent so long surviving that she'd almost forgotten what wanting felt like. I wanted to be a chef, not just cooking in someone else's kitchen, but creating menus, designing experiences, making food that mattered to people. Then do it. Dominic said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. Rebuild Belladonna as your restaurant. Your vision, your menu, your creative control. I'll provide the capital and the building. You provide the heart. Dominic, I can't just... Lena struggled to process the enormity of what he was offering. I don't have formal training. I never went to culinary school. I'm just a waitress who cooks at home. You're a survivor who's been hiding her talents because showing them felt dangerous. His voice carried absolute conviction. But you're not hiding anymore. And I want to give you the space to discover what you're capable of when you're not just surviving. Tears pricked Lena's eyes. Why? Why would you do this for me? Because watching you become who you're meant to be is the best investment I could possibly make. Dominic kissed her softly. And because I love you. And love means building futures together, not just surviving presents. The words hung between them, weighted with promise and possibility. Lena thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, invisible, terrified, living so small that she barely cast a shadow. And then she thought about who she was becoming, trained, confident, loved by a man who saw her potential instead of her fear. Okay, she whispered. Let's build something beautiful. The next 3 weeks became a whirlwind of planning and transformation. Lena threw herself into designing the new belladonna with an intensity that surprised even her. She sketched menus in the early morning hours, researched suppliers and sustainable farming practices, consulted with architects about kitchen layouts that would maximize efficiency without sacrificing creativity. Dominic watched her bloom with something like wonder in his eyes. You're terrifying when you're focused, he said one evening, finding her surrounded by fabric swatches and concept drawings. I'm making up for lost time. Lena looked up from her notes. 2 years of being too afraid to want anything. I'm not wasting another minute. Good. He settled beside her, examining her sketches. What's this? The main dining room. I want it to feel warm instead of exclusive. Natural materials, comfortable seating, lighting that makes people look beautiful instead of just expensive. She pointed to another drawing. And here, an open kitchen where diners can watch the cooking process. No secrets, no pretension. Just food and the people who make it. It's perfect. Dominic's voice carried quiet pride. Have you thought about staffing? I want to bring back everyone from the old belladonna who's interested, and I want to create a training program for people trying to enter the industry. Ex-convicts, immigrants, anyone who needs a second chance. Lena met his eyes. The way you gave me one? You didn't need a second chance. You just needed someone to see your first one clearly. But his expression showed he understood what she meant. I'll set up the legal structure for the training program. And Lena, I'm proud of you. The simple words nearly broke her. I haven't done anything yet. Well, you chose to build instead of hide. That's everything. During this time, the legal proceedings against Carlo Vega moved forward with bureaucratic efficiency. Agent Kim kept Dominic updated on the testimony, which detailed decades of criminal operations. But with each revelation, with each piece of the old empire dismantled, Lena watched Dominic grow lighter, as if each corrupt connection severed freed him from weight he'd been carrying for years. It's strange, he said one night, reading through depositions in the Connecticut house. I spent my whole adult life building and maintaining these networks, and now I'm watching them systematically destroyed, and all I feel is relief. Because they were prisons disguised as power. Lena curled against him on the sofa. You're free now. We both are. Are we? His voice carried a hesitation she hadn't heard before. Kyle's sentencing is next week. After that, once the legal proceedings are done and Belladonna is rebuilt, what then? Do you stay with me? Build this life we're planning? Or do you take the freedom you've earned and discover who you are without anyone else defining you? The vulnerability in his voice made Lena's chest ache. Are you asking if I'm going to leave? I'm asking if you're staying because you want to or because you feel obligated. Dominic set aside the depositions, his full attention on her. You've been through hell, Lena. Kyle's abuse, Vincent's war, explosions and shootings and constant danger. Now that it's over, I need to know. Are you here because you love me or because the chaos made you dependent on my protection? Lena pulled back enough to meet his eyes fully. Do you really think I'm that weak? That I can't tell the difference between love and dependency? No, but I think trauma creates complicated attachments, and I need you to be certain. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Because I'm all in, Lena, completely, terrifyingly in love with you. But I won't keep you in a gilded cage just because I'm too selfish to let go. The honesty in his words deserved equal honesty in return. Lena took a breath, gathering her thoughts. When Kyle first started hitting me, I told myself I loved him, that the abuse was an aberration, that the man I fell for was still in there somewhere. It took me 3 years to understand that love doesn't hurt, that real love doesn't require you to make yourself smaller. Lena, let me finish. She held his gaze. When I met you, I was terrified. Of everything, but especially of letting any man get close enough to hurt me again. But you never asked me to be small. You gave me space to be angry, to be strong, to take up room in the world. Her voice strengthened. You didn't save me, Dominic. You gave me tools and support and space to save myself. That's not dependency. That's partnership. And if I asked you to marry me? The question came out quiet, almost tentative. Not now, not today. But someday, when the dust has settled and the restaurants are built, and we've had time to just exist together, would your answer be yes because you love me? Or because leaving feels scarier than staying? Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. Is this a hypothetical question? No. Dominic pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. This is me being terrified that I'm moving too fast, pushing too hard, wanting too much, but also being too in love with you to pretend I don't want forever. He opened the box. Inside sat a ring, elegant and understated, a single diamond set in platinum with smaller stones flanking it. Beautiful, without being ostentatious. Exactly what Lena would have chosen for herself if she'd ever let herself imagine this moment. I'm not asking you to answer now, Dominic continued, his voice rough with emotion. I'm just asking you to know that this is where my heart is. That when I imagine the future, you're in every version of it. And that whenever you're ready, whether that's 6 months from now or 6 years, I'll be waiting with this question and this promise. Lena stared at the ring, her mind racing. Every rational instinct screamed that this was too fast, too intense, too much after everything they'd survived. She'd known this man for 6 months. Had been through a war with him, yes, but 6 months was nothing in the grand scheme of building a life together. And yet, she thought about the woman she'd been when Dominic first walked into Belladonna. Invisible, terrified, surviving, but not living. And she thought about who she was now, designing restaurants, training in self-defense, standing her ground against threats that would have destroyed her a year ago. Dominic hadn't changed her, but he'd given her permission to change herself. Ask me again when Belladonna opens, Lena said quietly. When we've built something together and proven that we work outside of crisis mode. Ask me then, and I'll have an answer. Something that looked like relief crossed Dominic's face. That's fair, more than fair. He closed the box but didn't put it away. And if your answer is no, then we figure out what comes next together. Lena took the box from his hands, opening it again to study the ring in lamplight. But Dominic, I'm not planning to say no. I just need to prove to myself that I'm choosing you from strength, not fear. Can you understand that? Better than anyone. He pulled her close, his arms solid and warm around her. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the quiet house, while winter slowly gave way to early spring beyond the windows. Outside, the world continued turning, but inside, in this moment, they had everything they needed. 2 weeks later, Lena stood in a courthouse watching Kyle Mercer be sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. He didn't look at her during the proceedings, didn't acknowledge her presence in the gallery or the testimony she'd given about years of abuse. He was already erasing her from his narrative, rewriting history so he remained the victim. But Lena didn't need his acknowledgement, didn't need his apology or his understanding. She'd already taken back everything he'd stolen, her safety, her autonomy, her right to exist without fear. How do you feel? Jennifer asked as they left the courthouse. Free. Lena said it with surprise, as if she hadn't expected the word to be true. Actually, genuinely free. Good. Because you earned it. Jennifer smiled. What's next for you? Building something beautiful. Lena thought about Belladonna's blueprints, about menus still being refined, about a future that was finally, completely hers to design. And learning to live without looking over my shoulder. That evening, she returned to the Tribeca apartment, the one where this whole journey had started. Dominic had offered to sell it, to find them something new without the weight of memory. But Lena had refused. This apartment represented the first place she'd felt safe in years. She wouldn't let Kyle's violence take that from her. Instead, she reclaimed it. Redecorated in colors she loved instead of neutral tones meant to avoid attention. Filled the kitchen with cooking equipment and the living room with books. Made it undeniably, unapologetically hers. Dominic found her there one evening in April, cooking an experimental dish for Belladonna's menu. The apartment smelled of garlic and fresh herbs, jazz playing softly in the background. "This is new," he said, taking in the transformed space. "I'm nesting," Lena grinned over her shoulder. "Turns out when you're not constantly terrified, you actually want to make your space beautiful. It suits you." Dominic moved behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. "What are you making?" "Osso buco. Your usual order from the old belladonna." She leaned back against him. "I'm trying to recreate it, but better. Add my own touch while honoring what worked before." "Metaphor for what we're building?" "Maybe." She turned in his arms. "How was the meeting with the contractors?" "Good. They're ahead of schedule. Belladonna should be ready for soft opening by July." His eyes held excitement she'd rarely seen before. "Marcus suggested we do a trial run first. Invite friends, family, industry people. Get feedback before the official opening." "That's smart." Lena's mind was already racing through possibilities. "We could do a tasting menu, show the range of what we're capable of." "We," Dominic repeated the word with satisfaction. "I like that you keep saying we. It's our restaurant, our vision." She kissed him softly. "Our future." The months that followed were a blur of construction and creation. Lena worked 16-hour days perfecting recipes, training new staff, building the kitchen culture she wanted to define Belladonna. Dominic handled business operations and legal structures, but he stayed out of creative decisions, trusting Lena's vision completely. They hired Sienna as general manager. Marcus took over security, discreet but present, enough to ensure safety without creating a fortress. And slowly, methodically, they built something that felt nothing like the old Belladonna. The new restaurant was warm where the old one had been cold, welcoming instead of exclusive. The open kitchen let diners watch chefs work, demystifying the process. The menu featured Italian-American fusion with seasonal ingredients from local farms. And the training program Lena had envisioned became reality, offering paid apprenticeships to people who needed second chances. In June, they held the soft opening. 50 guests, friends, family, industry contacts, and reporters from major food publications. Lena stood in the kitchen, her heart pounding as the first orders came through. "You've got this," Dominic said, appearing beside her with calm certainty. "I've watched you prepare for months. You're ready." "What if they hate it?" "Then we adapt, but they won't hate it." He kissed her temple. "Because you poured your heart into every dish. That comes through." He was right. The evening unfolded with the kind of magic that couldn't be manufactured, only created through preparation meeting opportunity. Dishes left the kitchen perfect and returned empty. Guests lingered over wine, conversations flowing naturally. And when the final course was served, the dining room erupted in applause. Lena emerged from this kitchen to find people standing, clapping, celebrating not just the food, but what it represented. Marcus caught her eye and nodded approval. Sienna was openly crying happy tears. And Dominic stood at the back of the room, his expression holding so much pride and love that Lena's breath caught. This was what freedom looked like. Not absence of struggle, but presence of choice. Not running from danger, but building something worth protecting. After the guests left and the staff cleaned up, Lena found Dominic on Belladonna's rooftop terrace, a new addition she'd insisted on, wanting diners to see the city they were part of instead of hiding from it. "That was incredible," he said as she joined him. "You were incredible." "We were incredible." Lena leaned against the railing, looking out at Manhattan's glittering skyline. "I can't believe we actually did it." "I can." Dominic moved beside her. "You've been unstoppable since the moment you decided to stop hiding. I had good teachers." She turned to face him. "And a partner who believed I was worth investing in." "Best investment I ever made." His hand reached into his pocket, pulling out the familiar velvet box. "Which brings me to a question I've been waiting to ask." Lena's heart began to race. "Dominic, you said to ask again when Belladonna opened, when we'd proven we work outside of crisis." He opened the box, the ring catching lamplight. "We've built something beautiful together, Lena. We've survived wars and come out stronger. We've created futures instead of just escaping pasts." His voice roughened with emotion. "So I'm asking now, with everything on the table and no pressure except what we choose, will you marry me?" Lena looked at the ring, then at Dominic's face, then out at the city that had witnessed their entire journey. She thought about the terrified waitress who'd served this man Osobuco 6 months ago, about the woman who'd pressed charges against her abuser, survived explosions and shootings, learned to fight back against violence. About the chef who just served 50 people the meal of their lives. She was all of those women. The scared one, the surviving one, the fighting one, the creating one. And she was also something more. Something she'd never been before. Chosen. Whole. Free. Yes, she said, the word coming out clear and certain. Yes, I'll marry you. Dominic's face transformed with joy. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, like he'd known her measurements all along, and pulled her into a kiss that felt like promise and celebration and homecoming all at once. I love you, he whispered against her lips, more than I knew I could love anyone. I love you too. Lena kissed him again. Thank you for teaching me that love doesn't have to hurt, that I'm allowed to take up space, that strength and softness aren't mutually exclusive. You taught yourself those things. I just held space while you did. They stood together on the rooftop, the city spreading out beneath them in all its complicated beauty. Somewhere below, people were living their lives, struggling and surviving and occasionally thriving, just like Lena and Dominic had done. What happens now? Lena asked, still marveling at the ring on her finger. Now we plan a wedding, run a restaurant, build the life we've been fighting for. Dominic's arms tightened around her. And we do it together, every step of the way. No more secrets, no more hidden wars. No more secrets. His voice carried absolute conviction. The old world is done. This is the new one. Transparent, honest, built on choice instead of obligation. I like the sound of that. Good. Because it's ours now. All of it. 3 months later, Lena stood in a small chapel in Connecticut, the same property where she'd once hidden from Vincent's threats, wearing a dress she'd chosen herself and holding flowers from the restaurant's rooftop garden. The guest list was tiny. Marcus and Sophia, Agent Kim, Jennifer Chen, Sienna, and a handful of others who'd helped them survive the wars. No paparazzi, no spectacle. Just two people choosing each other in front of witnesses who mattered. Dominic waited at the altar in a simple suit, his eyes never leaving Lena's face as she walked toward him. No one gave her away. She walked alone because she belonged to herself first and was choosing to share that self with him. The ceremony was brief and honest. They wrote their own vows, speaking truths about survival and strength and building futures from the wreckage of pasts. When Dominic slipped the wedding band onto her finger beside the engagement ring, his hands trembled slightly. I love you, he said, just for her. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for seeing me, Lena whispered back, for never asking me to be small. The kiss that sealed their marriage was tender and fierce and weighted with everything they'd overcome to reach this moment. When they turned to face their guests, the applause felt like celebration of more than just a wedding. It felt like triumph over everything that had tried to break them. At the reception, held at Belladonna, naturally, Lena watched Dominic move through the crowd with easy confidence. He'd fully transformed from the dangerous man who'd first requested her section to someone softer, lighter, free of the weight he'd carried for so long. You look happy, Agent Kim said, appearing beside Lena with champagne. Both of you. We are, Lena smiled. Thank you for everything you did, for helping Dominic transition, for protecting us during the war. That's my job. But watching someone actually make it to the other side? Agent Kim raised her glass. That's rare, treasure it. I will. As the evening progressed, Lena found herself on the rooftop terrace again, the same place where Dominic had proposed. The city glittered beneath her, alive and beautiful and full of possibility. There you are. Dominic joined her, wrapping his jacket around her shoulders against the October chill. Hiding from your own wedding? Just taking a moment, she leaned into him, remembering where we started. And where we're going. That too. Lena turned to face him. I've been thinking about the training program at Belladonna. I want to expand it. Create a network of restaurants committed to second chances. Build something bigger than just us. I love that idea. Dominic's eyes lit with the same excitement she felt. What do you need? Capital, connections, your business expertise. She grinned. Think you can handle being married to an ambitious restaurateur? I think I'm looking forward to it. He pulled her closer. We make a good team, Mrs. Moretti. The name still felt new, but increasingly right. Yes, we do. Below them, Manhattan pulsed with life. Somewhere in that sprawl, other people were fighting their own battles, surviving abuse, escaping violence, Learning to stand up after being knocked down. Lena thought about the woman she'd been a year ago and sent silent encouragement to everyone still fighting. It gets better. You get stronger. Freedom is possible. What are you thinking? Dominic asked, reading her expression. That we should create a foundation. Use our resources to help people escape situations like Kyle, like Vincent, like all the violence we survived. Lena's mind was already working through possibilities. Not just the restaurant training program, actual support, legal services, safe housing, therapy, everything I needed to escape and rebuild. The Isabella Foundation, Dominic said immediately. In my sister's memory. Perfect. Lena kissed him softly. Let's build it, along with the restaurant empire and whatever else we dream up. Let's spend our lives creating instead of destroying. Deal. His arms tightened around her. I love you, Lena Moretti. Thank you for saving me. I didn't save you. We saved each other. She met his eyes. That's what love does. It makes us brave enough to save ourselves. They stood together on the rooftop while their wedding reception continued below. Two people who'd survived hell and chosen to build heaven from the ashes. The city spread out around them, full of danger and beauty and infinite possibility. Lena had once believed survival was enough, that making herself invisible would keep her safe. Now she understood something far more powerful. She hadn't been saved by Dominic's intervention or protected by his resources. She'd been given space to remember her own strength, tools to reclaim her power, permission to take up room in the world without apology. And in remembering who she was, in choosing to fight instead of hide, to build instead of run, to love instead of fear, she'd become unstoppable. Not because violence couldn't touch her, but because she'd learned that surviving wasn't the same as living. That real strength wasn't avoiding damage, but healing from it. That love didn't require making yourself small to fit someone else's needs. Dominic had walked beside her on that journey, had held her when she needed comfort and stepped back when she needed space, had given her weapons and training and trust. But the woman she'd become? That was all her. And as they returned to their wedding reception, hands intertwined and futures wide open before them, Lena felt no trace of the fear that had governed her life for so long. She was free. Truly, completely free. And she was just getting started.